Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of recently being connected with across social media lines and a mutual contact, a mutual friend, if you will, that we know. She's a mom, she's an author, but most importantly, she's a woman of God, and she's taking time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us this evening and share a little bit of her journey, a little bit of her story, with the hopes of encouraging, inspiring, and uplifting others, especially when it comes to dealing with those challenging times in life. So, with that said, it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our very special guest this evening, Miss Florence Watson. Florence, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really, truly blessed to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump into our segments, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our audience a taste of who is Florence Watson.
Okay. So I was born and raised in New York City, an area we called East Harlem. And I there was a lot of challenges there. I had been separated from my father, and I was raised by my stepfather. So that was a trying time right there, not being with my father's family. But I am a licensed practical nurse. I have been a nurse for over 49 years. I worked in many nursing homes and assisted living facilities. And my husband passed away in 2014. I have four adult children, 10 grandchildren, and four great grandchildren, and one on the
Wow.
way. So it's a lot. It's like it's getting bigger and bigger, and more time to pray, to cover it. So I live right now in North Carolina. I had to. I left New York City because I was in a relationship that was very, very harmful. I was with my children's oldest father. He was brilliant man, but he was abused when he was young, so he was abusive. And so I was with him for 14 years, very controlling situation. Um, One that, I became a nurse when I was 18 years old from high school. So I was in that nursing school in high school, and when I went to college, I studied for the exam, and I was already a nurse by the time I reached college. I never
Hmm.
finished it though, 72 college credits, but never completed I was going for my RN and never did because of life journey and all the things that happened in my life. So right now, well, I don't want to jump ahead because I know you have different segments.
Oh, that's no problem. That's no problem. I mean, what you've just shared in these first few minutes is phenomenal. First of all, just the idea of just I'm thinking about the family segment of it in terms of you being a mom of four adult children, and you have the grandkids and the great grandkids. I mean, what a testament to that, to just be able to live a life where you've been able to experience the growing of your family through generations. That's a beautiful thing. And then, of course, to have a career that you've had, over 49 years doing anything, especially doing something in the nature in the work of nursing, and particularly having some specialty areas of assisted living facilities and things of that nature. I'm sure you've seen a multitude of sicknesses and the challenges and whatnot that goes with all of that. And so for you to be able to withstand that, raise kids and expand the family, and still be here to to talk about your growth throughout life, and the successes that you have, even in the midst of some of the stuff that you just shared, dealing in an abusive relationship and things of that nature. I mean, it's a testament to who you are. It's a testament to what you represent, and it's exactly a perfect fit for you being on our podcast this evening, because we want to hear stories like this, because we know that they just don't happen by chance. We know that they don't fall into place like that. God's anointing is involved in it all along the way, and there's lessons to learn and things to grow and and develop from. And most importantly, it's an opportunity to equip you to be a blessing to other people. Even with the early things that I know about you, and the works that you're doing. I mean, you couldn't get to that point without having to go through some stuff. Some of it good, some of it challenging, but nevertheless, it was all divinely designed just so you can be in settings such as this. Whether it's a podcast platform or on a stage or or as an author, things of that nature. So I mean, this is great stuff, and I appreciate you sharing and just in these first few moments, with us about what we have to look forward to. What otherwise is going to be a very powerful story. So appreciate that.
Yes.
Um, One thing, Florence, that and I talk about this on every show. I always like to take a moment out of reflection, if you will, because I believe that, as I was just sharing a moment ago, when we go through life's storms, go through life's journey in general, um, we don't always know, earlier on in life why we encounter who we encounter or the things that we go through as far as making that connection. But I do really believe, even as far back as our childhood days, that, those encounters, the individuals that we meet, that it's for a greater purpose. It's for us to ultimately, build upon so that one day when we finally understand why were we created to begin with, what is our whole purpose for being here, I think we begin to reflect back on some of those earlier days, and I think sometimes the light bulbs become to come on. We begin to connect the dots, so to speak, and say, you know what, this is why this happened. This is why I was there when I was there. The situations that took place, all of it had an intricate part in me becoming in this case, becoming the woman that you are, and walking in the purpose that God has specifically designed for you. And so, with that said, if you would, um, let's go back to those earlier days, if you would, and just kind of share with us what was it like for you growing up. Fond memories that come to mind in terms of your growing up. If there's any other challenges that you care to mention, you can do that as well. Just kind of give us a backdrop of what that was like for you, life growing up.
Well, my mother was very involved in the community. She really wanted to see people living in decent housing,
Mhm.
and so she was really involved with that. And looking back at what she has done and accomplished, I have some of her traits of things like that. What she did is like that's what mom
Mhm.
used to do, But I was I used to hang out with my cousins. We used to go to um, fond memories is going to Central Park at night, going ice skating, riding our bikes. When it was when you could be around the neighborhood and it was safe.
Mhm.
Everybody knew you. Everybody looked out for you. They didn't see you like something was up. But the memories that I have is that my mother, she named me Florence because she really believed that she just said you're Florence Nightingale, and so I pursue that. I just she said that when I was a little girl, I used to bandage the dolls. I don't remember that, but she said you used to take your dolls and just wrap them with bandages, like I was, healing, doing something, taking care of them. I do not remember that, but I remember one time um, President Kennedy came to our neighborhood, and I was sick, and I couldn't see him.
Mhm.
That was, and even going to, we had across the river, we had places that we used to have picnics with the family. Um, we used to really enjoy the time that we had, but it was a lot of Friday night was party night. Everybody came to my house. We played Latin music. We, I was raised like, everybody just hung out. We got the pots and pans and we were just playing, all together, family and friends. And so there was a lot of partying, but really, it was a lot of partying on Friday nights in my house and raised in that, you know, that was the thing you did, on Friday.
Mhm.
But being knowing the Lord now, And I want to say one thing too was when I was a little girl, I would have visions of people. I remember seeing one particular one. I saw my aunt coming down the hallway in our building, and then 2 weeks later, she came down the hallway in my building. So I would see things sometimes, and my mother was a church secretary, but we were not living the way you know to be a church secretary at one point of her life. Um, Rarely went to church. I was led by friends to go to a Catholic church, and my mother was like, "No, you're not," because she was upset with the Catholic church when she was younger. And so I end up, well, I met my older children's father when I was younger, maybe in my teens, and we were together ever since. But he was very controlling. He wanted to control my life. Very brilliant man, but he wanted to control my life. He wanted me to do this and do that and do everything that he wanted me to do. And then it was abusive situation. So that's what led me to leave New York City was because, and you said something earlier. You said the light on it at the end of the tunnel. I actually saw a light, no light at the end of the tunnel, and
Mm.
it was time for me to leave.
Wow.
And I left the situation. I just walked out of the situation. I had, oh, before that, where I was working, I knew one of the nurses. She was building her house here in North Carolina. And when they were, her and her husband were finished, they were going to retire here. And that's what she did. So I was at a very desperate situation of everything. So whenever I had my paycheck, that was gone. It was like, it was gone to drugs. So it's like I need money for work. I need money to. I had my daughter then, and it was very a difficult situation. And then living from Manhattan, living to the Bronx, and then coming back to Manhattan, the transition. It was just not a good situation. And when you're not walking with the Lord, or you are not um, seeking Him for answers, the enemy is going to send you in places that He's going to send you to destroy your life. And even though this person, this man wants to manipulate and everything, he was a very good con artist. I've seen him get out of getting killed several times because he was very good with his mouth. He was very charismatic. But as a woman, as a young lady, a situation like that is very unhealthy. And if there's anyone out there in that type of situation, you need to get out of it. And what I did is when I got out of that situation, I walked away from everything. I had my daughter. I didn't know I was pregnant when I
Hmm.
left North Carolina. I'm in New York City. I just called this lady who was living in North Carolina and I said, I'm going to run away to your house and start my life over. And she was, when I told her I was going to be at this bus station, which was far from where she lived, she was there waiting for me.
Wow.
I had one paycheck and just me and my daughter, and that woman was waiting for me
Hmm.
and took me in her house, her and her husband, and then I started. I moved to another town in North Carolina. Um, they hired me right away. I was able to get my license transferred, and they hired me right away because I had a lot of skill with things that I did. And I was given a favor, and the Lord said He gave me a lot of favor in that situation. And then found out I was pregnant, and I had a this is It's called complete placenta previa, which means that um, your uterus, the placenta, instead of being up, it's covering the birth canal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's covering it, and that was the way the enemy wanted to kill me, because if that was came before the baby, you die, you hemorrhage to death.
Mm.
He had a plan. When I left New York, he had a plan, and so my son was born very healthy. Um, they were saying give us 28 weeks. I gave him 30 something weeks, I think, like that, and so I did get out of that situation to start my life over. But what happened was, one thing that happened in that area was that, because I knew, I gave, when I left, I said, Lord, you're going to take care of me. And so the Lord worked everything out for me. I met a family. I went to this church. People were they were helping me out and everything. And then the thing about it, I didn't tell my family that I left where I was, because I knew that my children's father, he would find out where you at, and he had a way with words, and so I did call my sister, and said to her, "Look, I'm here. I had a baby. I'm fine. I'm doing well." And then she says, "Oh, you know, the children's father, he passed away, but oh, he's doing fine. He gave his life to the Lord and all this other stuff, and just all this stuff." And I just thought, well, maybe I hate for him to be away from his children. Maybe since I'm out of there in New York City, maybe he could come down, and we could work everything out. And that happened, and it didn't work out.
Mm.
The Lord said, "I took you out of Egypt, and you returned."
Mm-hmm.
That's what He said. And so this time I end up having to leave the situation with him. I went into a women's shelter and end up having to leave the women's shelter, which was down the road from where I lived. End up leaving. I said to the lady, I kept saying, "You got to get me out of here, because this man is going to find out where I am." And she said, "Come into my office." You know what he did? He
Mm.
went to your pastor and said that they want to counsel us, and she's in this shelter. And I says, "You have to get me out of here, because he's going to find out where I'm at." And she was like, she didn't believe. I says, "You see, she's getting calls. She's not here. I mean, why? Who are you talking about? That person is not here."
Mm-hmm.
So she asked me. She said, "Where would you like to go? We have places all over the country." So I was looking at the news, and I saw Raleigh, and I was like, there's the building. It looks like the building in New York City. And I end up going there to this shelter and starting over again my life. This time I had to really depend on God.
Mm.
No one was there to help me. So I met people. I didn't have a car. I did not need a car in New York City. You have the bus, the train, take a cab. You could walk anywhere. Not in North Carolina. So they had buses, but oh my goodness, you had to travel to one spot to go and take the other buses.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up being in North Carolina for 2 years without a car. I didn't know how to drive, but I was able to get my life in order again. God gave me favor again. I even had a scholarship for my two children. I got a scholarship for a very prestigious daycare down here. Um, Ended up working in a hospital first as a neuro nurse, and starting my life over from that. But I truly depended on God. I trusted in him. Then it was the scene of going to church. Then you have to, and the Lord was doing so much stuff in my life, some supernatural stuff that people were like, I've been a Christian for 15 years. I don't hear from God, or I don't, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I had to be careful what I say. I thought it happened to everybody, to be honest. Like, if this happening to me, it's happening to everybody. You're a child of the king, you got everything, you know. And I had some friends that said, no, there's supernatural things that could be happening to you, but not everybody has that. And you say something, they may think something is out of kilter with you. So that was part of the journey of how I got out from New York to North Carolina.
Wow. Wow. Um, Again, let me start off by saying appreciate your transparency and sharing as you have. Uh, I can't imagine the emotional, mental, um, physical, as well as spiritual process that you were just going through and dealing, with an abusive situation and trying to find a way out, and then, finding yourself kind of back and forth with whether or not should I give it another chance or not. I mean, and your story is not an uncommon one. There are women who have gone through similar situations. And as you said, I think what's important to point out is you said it was about that favor that God had over you to protect you in the midst of all of this. To keep you out of harm's way, even though you were clearly in a volatile, dangerous type of situation. He kept you. And so what that says to me is that he wasn't done with you yet, that there was something more that despite the uncomfortable nature of the circumstance that you were in, he was looking for a way to utilize this so you could again be a blessing to someone else. And so I think that's a very important takeaway from the midst of our storms, and even to my listeners, because a lot of times when we're going through those difficult times, when we go through those hard times, it's very easy to point our fingers at who's to blame for this. We kind of get into this victim self, feel sorry for yourself type of mode, and not that you shouldn't feel some kind of way about going through, uh, but it's something that you can't stay stuck in. You have to say, okay, and what does this all mean? What is this all for? And part of your understanding about all of that is a direct connection to where do you stand with God in that relationship with him. Because when you're in relationship with him and you're going through, he has a way of bringing that calm to the storm. He has a way of bringing that comfort, if you will, that he has a way of being able to get you to take that deep breath so that you can hear from him and know, okay, these are not only the next steps that you need to take in order to be able to overcome this challenge, but also to understand what is the ultimate lesson in this? What is the big picture of this moment? And I'm just thankful that you were able to experience both of that, the favor part of it and understanding the big picture of why you had to go through what you had to go through. And I don't know if you paid attention to the title of our show for today,
Mhm. Nope.
but and when I pick a title, I don't necessarily know how it's going to resonate with the story that one tells, but it always seems to just fall into place. And I don't give myself credit for that. I give God credit for that, because as you were telling that story, I'm looking at the title and I'm thinking, God was trying to provide her a doorway to peace. He was trying to take her from what was otherwise a tumultuous, crazy, chaotic situation and give you a pathway to something that was bigger and better than what you could have even fathomed in your own imagination, in your own dreams of what this would be. You were running from a harmful situation, taking a risk, stepping out on faith, just trusting that by relocating to a foreign place to you, obviously North Carolina is a complete opposite of New York City.
There is.
To go into it, and that's no knock against North Carolina. I've heard very nice things about North Carolina,
Beautiful up here.
but it's not New York City in terms of its size, in terms of its dynamic and all of that. So for you to go into a completely opposite setting, a completely opposite environment for where you came from, not having a host of family and friends that were waiting to receive you. Fortunately, God had aligned you with a woman who allowed you to come into her home with her husband and take care of you initially. But you didn't have family down there. You didn't have this host of friends. Yeah, like you said, I had one paycheck in my hand. I had no car. I got kids, and I'm just trying to figure out what's my next my next steps. How do I survive what I've been going through, and how do I move forward? And this is where God can step in, because when it doesn't make sense to us, when we don't have all the answers, when we don't have all of the steps in place, He has a way of filling that gap for us and making sure that it all lines up exactly the way that it's supposed to go. And I think that's what makes your story so powerful that you've shared so far, is because this was necessary in order for you to get to the point that you had to get to, landing in North Carolina. He even made sure that at a very early age, because you said something earlier that that most people can't make that claim. I mean, at 18 you were already trained to be a nurse. You stated that I didn't even get all my credits, but you nevertheless had a skill, a lifetime skill that you could take at that age to go to, again, to a foreign place and be able to immediately get employment, be able to immediately start to get back on your feet and begin the first steps of that new life, if you will. But it was more than just a relocation effort. This was a new life. What God saw was, I'm not interested in you just going from place A to place B, because if nothing changes in terms of your mindset, if nothing changes in terms of your heart, in terms of your ways, your walk, then you just move from one place to another. But when you insert me in it, and when you start to trust in me, when you start to lean on me, now North Carolina looks different. It's not just another state that you went to. You're not just in a new city. You're living a new life relationally with me, because I'm gonna show you how to live life in a way that you haven't previously experienced. I'm gonna help you be able to make better decisions, better judgment calls. I'm gonna remind you how valuable and how special you are. What your worth is, so that you don't allow people to treat you a certain kind of way. You don't put yourself in situations, because you know who you belong to. You know who created you in your own special and unique way. And so, again, sometimes God has to use these storms to help us realize that, as well as just to let us know that not only can we not do it all by ourselves, but we don't have to do it all by ourselves. He rather you lean on Him and let Him do all the work. And just to show you how much He loves you, how much He wants nothing but the best for you, and all of those wonderful things. So, again, I appreciate you sharing that, because this is what our listeners need to hear. That just because you're in a bad situation, yes, you made another good point too, is when you're in those situations, don't, if it's a harmful setting, if you're being mistreated, you're being subjected to abuse, don't run the risk of trying to stay longer than you should. You need to exit, remove yourself from that. It doesn't make you a bad person for removing yourself from that. And even if you hear that the person that you removed yourself from is turning their lives around, and whether it's they're giving their lives to the Lord and all that, you can celebrate that from afar.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they've made that decision, it doesn't mean that they've healed. It doesn't mean that they've dealt with whatever traumas that may have gotten them to that point. Because I think that was another key thing, is that a lot of people don't understand. Not so much to justify any abusive situations that you were in as a result of your ex, but you did make mention that he came from an
Mhm.
abusive setting coming up. And so if I come from that and I've never healed from that, I've never had an opportunity to process that trauma, then, as you stated, I can be as brilliant and talented as I can be, but that hurt, that unresolved, that lack of forgiveness, that all of
That's
the things that come with trauma, because it hasn't been dealt with, and now I meet you, and I should be in a wonderful relationship with you. It should be a wonderful marriage with you, but I don't even know how to love you, because I don't know how to love me. I don't know how to value you, because I don't value me. I
yes.
don't know how to appreciate you, because I don't appreciate me. Again, it doesn't make the excuse for it, the behavior, but it explains what's involved in it. And that's what people have to, understand. As they say, hurt people,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just kind of how it goes. And until you resolve that stuff, even when you get out of a relationship, if you haven't given your chance enough time to process, to heal from whatever it was that caused that thing to end, and you jump too quickly into the next one, you may have a great person that you just linked up with, but you'll mess it up because you're still messed up. You
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to
Right.
deal with it all. So, All of these things are very, even though you're telling them specific to your story, they can be applied to a multitude of situations that people go through in life. And it's so important, again, to connect those dots, which is why I like to have this reflection moment about, why we go through what we go through, even as far back as our younger years, because while it doesn't necessarily make sense at the time, later on it makes sense because, like, okay, this is what it was ultimately all about, and that's the beautiful thing is when you can glean from those lessons and say, okay, that now I can apply this not only to my own life, but now, and I'm sure you've had moments where you've had a chance to impart, whether it be in your kids or your grandkids, just values and lessons and little key nuggets that they need to know that perhaps they can navigate their lives a little bit smoother, a little bit easier, all because you've been there and done that. And you could tell
Yes.
them, you know.
Tell them that. I said, you know what? Don't play me. You know what? I'm streetwise. Don't even
Mm-hmm.
think. And now I have wisdom from the Lord. But you know what? I was out there in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Don't come with that. Because, you know,
Said don't let
don't get
my
me
don't let
tired.
my age fool you. Don't let my don't just
Mhm.
because I'm not, alert to whatever the latest things. I know enough to know, when somebody's trying to play me or when they're not trying to play with me.
Right.
There's nothing you can do that's new. That they just you all you're doing is recreating stuff that I've already seen. So you're not
Yeah.
being slick. You're not getting away with anything.
Mhm. Yeah.
But you're also reminding, again, that younger group, whether it's again people that you're related to or just other people in general that you have an opportunity to speak to and minister to in your own way. Said, hey, take it from me. I've lived life. I've seen some things. I've been through some stuff. You
Mhm.
might want to take some of what I have to share and don't just pass it off as, oh, you don't know, that's how it used to be back in the day and all that. And there's some very timeless, valuable, timeless lessons that God imparts on us, that apply for generations and generations and generations to come. It never gets old. It never expires. It doesn't have an end date to it. It just like it was applicable back then. It's applicable now. So
There's some reflections that I want to share. This is
sure.
that you think about, well, it was a bad situation, not all the time, but it was as he gotten older, you know nothing was happening with his life because every time he tried to do something, it just is like the enemy just messed it up.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about all this is, so I have my father, and my mother, they dabbled in witchcraft. So then here's this man keeping me away from my family. So I didn't get involved with that. I wasn't really familiar with all that. But so I'm away from my father, who was very, very into witchcraft. So I wasn't raised with him in that and learning that. So even though this happened, that I was kept away from my family because this man was controlling my life, I looked, wow, God, you still protected me from something that was even, anything demonic is really bad,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I was kept from a lot of that too. And being devoted to this man, I was so devoted to him that when I left him, it was so easy to devote myself to Jesus Christ. Because I was like, I'm so devoted and I'm not getting anything, but I'm devoted to you and I'm getting everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like a difference. And so just different, so many different aspects of my life. I was trying to write things down so I don't forget what when you was talking, I'm like, "Ooh, let me say this. Let me write this down, because you think of all these things coming to your mind and then it's like you forget and everything.
No
But
problem.
God he's been faithful. He's been really good to me and my family, my children, grandchildren. I end up so being here, I end up moving to Raleigh, working in the hospital there, and met friends that I didn't have a car, so people would take me to church and everything. And so that was another whole scenario, a whole little learning about the churchy stuff. It's like it's it's nice when it's real, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to be discerning when there's people who are not. You have to be very careful. Single women have to be careful with men out there that go to church. You have to be very careful, very discerning, because they could be just as bad as they could be the wolves out there. And so I've had a lot of experience with just I was in the singles group. Even though I had children, there was some mothers and father men and women who had their kids. But I met a friend. He was a friend of mine, and end up with other. He was living with other friends, and this he was an alcoholic, but he stopped drinking, and there was I was a good friend of his, and he said I was a thorn in his flesh,
Hmm.
and so I end up spending time with him, end up getting married to him, and we were married almost 20 years. He passed away, but I saw there was some healing that needed to be done with him and his family, and I was there um, to be part of that. Where
Hmm.
God healed the relationship between his mom and dad.
Wow.
And one time, his grandmother passed away, and so I had to take him. I didn't have to, but I took him to to his grandma's funeral in Virginia. And this is a thing that happened. So when I took him, we were not married, we were just friends. I just took him to his grandmother's funeral. And so it was so strange because this was a step grandmother, and that family really loved Jim, my late husband's Jim. His parents and that side of the family were like, you know, there was, there was, they were not in peace together.
Mm-hmm.
So I was ministering to people there while I was there. And then the Jim went with his uncle, which was really they were the same age, and he disappeared. And his parents said, "You look like you're a nice lady. You should not be with this man." You know. And so I just left. I left and went back home. I was so upset because I was embarrassed because his family was there, and he left with his uncle, which they were, like I said, the same age. And when I got home, the Lord said to me, "Call Jim's father and tell Jim's father to go to his son, find him, and tell him that I love you." God's telling me to tell this man, and he abused his son too. He abused Jim, right? Tell this
Mm-hmm.
man, I heard some stories and stuff from Jim about his parents. So I called. And there was a machine. I was like, oh, good, I could leave the machine. Then all of a sudden the phone picked up. And I says, look, you need to go and tell your son, go find your son. Tell him you love him.
Hmm.
Oh, I've done this. And we almost argued. I was like, look, okay, he left me at your brother's house. I don't care about that. You need to go and tell your son that you love him. And he did. So his uncle brought him back home because he was living in Raleigh. And I took him to church, and he says, well, my dad told me he loved me, but I know you probably had something to do with it. I said, no, 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 no. He said, no. I said, no, 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 no. God told me this. And he said, I don't believe that. Well, he was living with a family. So we go there. His phone rings, and it's his dad
Hmm.
asking him, did you get home safe? Stop. That was like foreign. And then Jim started crying. And he said, I said, what's wrong? He said, my dad told me that God's been telling him for 3 months to call me and tell me that I love you.
Hmm.
So that right there broke. It was like, you know, there was healing there. Because see, it wasn't me. Your
Mm-hmm.
dad, God's been telling your dad to do that. And I had to tell him, God used me to, you know. And so he was like, that was like a miracle because it was like, I never talked to this man. And he's going to share that with his son. God has been telling me to tell you I love you, and I have not been obedient. And so I said, see, it wasn't me. So that healed that relationship and healed the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Then years later, we got married, and then we have two sons. Then he passed away. So I didn't. I after I left New York, I got married 8 years later.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to be with anybody. I don't want to, and everything. So that was another part of my story. I have a lot of stories.
I mean, that's a beautiful part. I mean, and again, it goes back to the title of our show because remember I said God will take you through storms. He'll walk you through that thing, wanting you to trust in Him, believe in Him to get you through. But what a lot of times people don't understand is that, and this is with storms in general.
Mhm,
Many of the storms that we go through are never about us to begin with,
mhm,
but it's necessary for you to go through it because it positions you to be able to help other people get through their storms. The story that you just shared, you were looking for your doorway to peace, but here you now had an opportunity to be a part of, to experience, in this case your husband having a doorway to peace between by reconnecting with his dad, hearing
mhm,
words of affection from his father that he just was not used to hearing his dad say, I love you, or his dad checking in on him. And then to tie the component of why he did it, he didn't say, I felt guilty. I felt like, I felt forced or pressured. God had been telling me this for months.
mhm,
But sometimes to get people over that hump for what God has been telling them, there has to be somebody on the outside, perhaps even somebody that they don't even know like that,
mhm,
that helps to give them that just that nudge, to get them over the hump to do what God has been having for them to do. Like you said, he operated in obedience and he did what God told him to do, and now a whole family becomes becomes involved in the process of healing. Whatever the past hurts were, whatever the barriers were that stopped them from talking to each other or showing affection to each other and just loving each other like a family is supposed to. And
mhm,
to know that you had a part in that you were able to bear witness to it, gives you further confirmation of the love that God has, but it also, again, allows you to be utilized as a tool, to impart that on somebody else. And that's just something, to our listeners, you just got to understand that, you know, it's not just about you getting from point A to point B. God sees way bigger, way more than that. He's like, no, Florence, I'm gonna get you out of your stuff. We're gonna work on you, but but the work is just beginning.
mhm,
There's some other relationships that I'm gonna connect you with that you're gonna be a tool used by me to facilitate some healing. There's going to be opportunities for you to do that in the form of your writing. There's going to be opportunities for you to do it in a number of different venues and platforms that you don't see, but I've already got it laid out. All I was waiting for you to do, Florence, was to, just like just like the dad had to get in operate in obedience. I was just waiting for you to operate in obedience too, so I could show you all that I have for you, show you a life that you didn't think was possible after what you had gone through earlier on. But I'm here to tell you that it's all that and then some that I have for you. And you've enjoyed these years and years of experiencing that. You had a chance at a second, marriage that was, a beautiful experience for you, not instead of the abusive experience from the past. all of those things matter. They all connect. And so again, I appreciate you sharing these stories that you are, because it's all just kind of it's all connecting together. It's There's nothing fractured about it. There's nothing broken up about it. It's all a part of the process. And it's so important for us to again to take stories like this, to take these testimonies and understand the power behind them and understand the God who controls it all. So again, I appreciate you sharing that.
His
This is
dad
good
is
stuff.
alive. His dad is alive still, and he calls me all the time so I could pray for him.
Hmm.
You know, he calls me. You know, things going on. He calls me. Can you pray for me? I'm like, yeah, I'll pray for you.
That's huge.
You know, so it's yeah, it's. But there was so God used my late husband to heal me of things. There was one
Hmm.
time when we were talking and he looked at me and I got really like all of a sudden this fear came because he looked at me a certain way and the Lord said, why are you why are you responding like that? But it was because of the past, uh,
Hmm.
you know, where my older children's father would he could look at me a certain way and then I'm like, and then Jim had just looked at me and I got like that and the Lord caught me and he said, why are you doing that? Why are you feeling that way?
Hmm.
And I was able to ask Jim to pray for me. That something just happened, emotionally, you know,
Hmm.
and everything. So it was just little things like that that God still used to heal me of there's hidden trauma there.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm like one that things happen and you don't see. I don't have an expression or anything, but I keep it inside. And God want to make sure that my soul is healed,
Hmm.
and He continues to do that because I wrote something in the book about an incident that that I'll share later when we come to that part. You know, but yes, God is He's faithful. And then He knows when in the timing that you're ready to get healed of
Hmm.
things. If somebody could say something to you and it doesn't, you're not there yet, and then maybe a year later, somebody else could say something to you, and you're like, oh, okay, I need healing for this. Oh,
Hmm.
and see, with me, that interceding, there's different levels of intercession.
Hmm.
I learned this from a book from Peter Wagner, the late Peter Wagner. He had a book on intercessors, what roles they play, that God puts them. And I've been one that's been like one on one with a family and to intercede for the family and then see them heal,
Hmm.
relationships heal. And I when I read that I was like, oh, is that the type of intercessor I am? You know? Yeah, and so there's different levels, but yeah, that was something. I mean, it's a lot of it's not all like, oh, this all happened. There's a lot of
Hmm.
warfare going on there.
Right.
We've also when Jim and I were married, we had warfare, especially when I was involved with the community, praying for the city. When you praying for the city, I mean, your household could get hit with all kinds of stuff. So so yes, I have experienced all kinds of things, but I thank the Lord that He has placed me in a place where I could just be still and know that He is God, that He's in charge.
Absolutely. And I'm
He
so glad you pointed out the the forgiveness and the healing piece, because yes, as we talked about, he delivers you through your situation, delivers you out of your situation. He's utilizing you to help other people deliver, but he's also reminding you that while you're understanding, the importance for others to heal, the importance for others to forgive, don't forget about you.
Mhm.
don't forget that you still got some healing to do too.
Mhm.
You still have some forgiving to do too, because I can only take you so far in how I use you unless you do some work on the inside of yourself. In order for me to level up with you, in order for your pouring into other people to be valid and relatable, they have to be able to bear witness to you that you too have forgiven, that you too have healed, that you understand what that means, and that you don't want to just, in other words, we don't want to just get good, and we've been guilty of that. Those of us who've been called by God to do these great works and to come alongside others, sometimes we can be the best encouragers and uplifters and pour intoers and all of that for everybody else but ourselves.
Mhm.
And so it lends the question, and I've posed this question a number of times on the podcast, what happens when the encourager needs to be encouraged?
Mhm.
What happens when the person who's telling everybody else to rest, to have peace, to heal? What happens when I'm not doing that for me? And sometimes God has to remind us of that, and pump our brakes to say, look, don't forget about you, because in order for you to be effective in the way that I intend for you to be, you got to understand that you are deserving of healing and forgiveness as well. That you got to do some forgiving too. You got to do some healing too. You can't just be good at talking about it and you're not practicing it within yourself. And
Yes.
so I'm glad you pointed that out, and recognizing that, hey, that this is something that I had to do and that I still do. That even in as we're speaking in real time right now,
Mhm.
and this is what I like about, and how I operate the podcast, is that we're not here to our listeners, we're not here to tell you that we got it all figured out, and that,
Mhm.
or that going through the process is going to be all rosy and perfect, and there's, birds chirping in the background, and flowers blooming. You're going to go through some turbulence, you're going to go through some rough patches along the way. But what's going to happen, because you're doing it not by yourself, but with God at the forefront, you're not going
Yes.
to get knocked out of the game, no matter how turbulent it gets. You're not going to be wiped out of the situation. The enemy is not going to be able, no matter how hard he tries, he's not going to be able to disrupt or stop what you're doing,
Mhm.
because God is now with you. He's walking this thing out with you. He's giving you all the guidance and direction and the covering and protection that you need. But he's also reinforcing in you too make sure that you're healing. You too make sure that you're forgiving, because in order for you to be used at the highest of levels by me, you got to get that right too.
Yes.
And so it's evident in what you've just in what you've been sharing this entire time. That this has been something that has been an ongoing process for you, and it continues to be, and which is why God can continue to use you accordingly to bless and pour into other people. So I'm glad you made a point of that, because it's really critical for people to understand that.
One time when I was in a time of fasting, and the Lord was showing me something.
Hmm.
He was showing me something about me, and I said, "I'm like that, Lord." I was like so surprised. He showed me something. I'm like, "I'm like that. Oh, forgive me,"
Hmm.
because it was like I saw something, and He said, "Look, you don't see this, but you see it now."
Hmm.
I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
And we have to learn to forgive ourselves.
Hmm. Oh yes. Yes.
Forgive ourselves. God, we say, God, forgive me for my sins. And I forgive myself too. I have
Hmm.
to forgive myself.
Yes.
You know,
There's nothing wrong with showing yourself some grace,
yes, amen.
showing yourself some mercy. Yeah, I might have said something I shouldn't have said. I might have done something that I shouldn't have done. But that doesn't mean that that's my end of my story. That doesn't mean that I'm a horrible person. That means I fell short. And guess what? I'm human, and that's what human beings do from time to time. We fall short. But when we recognize that that's what we've done, we've asked God to forgive us. Why? And He's done it so easily, so smoothly, so graciously. Why can't we show ourselves a little grace and mercy? Because see, the enemy wants you to not forgive yourself. He wants you to, even though you know good and well that God forgave you,
Mhm.
who's ultimately the most important person to forgive you, He forgave you. But if he can get in your head If the enemy can get in your head and get you to thinking that that wasn't enough,
Yeah.
you'll sit around for some people days, weeks, months, even years will beat yourself up over and over and over again about something that God has already moved on from. You sitting here torturing yourself. Oh, how horrible I am. Oh, and you'll talk yourself out of being able to be worthy of being used by God. You'll talk yourself out of the things that God had placed in your heart to do, that He specifically created you for, all because you won't forgive yourself. You won't let it go. If God was willing to let it go, then what would stop you from letting it go? So
Yeah.
if
We
he thought you were worthy, yes, go ahead.
no see the whole trick of the enemy is to have you focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you focus on yourself for any little thing, then he's got you.
Exactly.
He's got you. He could tear you to pieces and everything. And there have been times when I have felt this. I have felt like there were forces of darkness all around me, in some times of trial that I was going through. And all I did was stand still
Mm-hmm.
and just begin to worship. That's it. I just really like, I felt like, oh, I felt like forces, these evil for all over me. Like all I could do is stand
Mm-hmm.
and just worship. And God is faithful.
Yes. Yes.
And he tests us too. We're
Mm-hmm.
tested. We are tested. And I like to pass the test,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And really, the test is nothing more than
obedience.
do you still trust me? You still trust me? I know you said it the other day. I know you said it last month. But every
Mhm.
now and then, I have to let something come your way just to check to see if anything has changed. You still trust me? Do you still believe that just like I did the time before and the time before that and the time before that got you through whatever it was that you thought was impossible to overcome? You still trust me? Because the more you trust me, the more I elevate stuff. The more I present things that the world can't explain. That the world would say, Florence, you are out of your mind if you think that you're going to get through that. There's no way. It's just not realistic. You crazy. That's crazy talk. But the more that the more you trust God, the more faith you start having in Him. Nothing. It gets to a point where nothing seems quote unquote crazy anymore.
Mhm.
Nothing seems insurmountable. Nothing seems impossible because you've seen too many times God make it work out just like it was supposed to, just like it was supposed to work out. To the point to where when you start to share, and that's when you really know you've arrived. When you start to share stuff with people, or people get to bear witness of how God's moving in your life, and they're at a loss for words, like it almost like you can't even make this up. You can't
Yeah,
call it luck. You can't call it. Oh,
can't
you
make it
must have.
up.
You can't call it. It was a hookup that you had. It's only because you knew something. No, it had nothing to do with that. It was all Him.
That's right.
This is what favor looks like. This is when it's just dripping off of you, and just stuff happens that people can't. They can't explain it, other than to give God credit for it, whether they want to or not. You can't attach it to nothing else. It was not about my titles, my years of experience, my the money in my bank account. It was never about any of those things. This was all God. That's when you know that you're flowing a different way now, that you're moving different, and now it gets exciting. That's what we talk about when the word starts talking about, when you go through stuff, to count it all joy. That's how you count it all joy, not because you enjoy going through stuff,
Hmm.
but you just enjoy seeing how God works it out when you're going through.
I
There's just
love
something
that.
exciting about it, like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, okay, Lord, this ain't feeling good right now. This is okay, but every time I find myself in situations similar to this, where it gets a little tight, it gets a little tense. Every time I've trusted you and every time I've leaned on you, you have never failed me. So I know you up to something. I may not know what it is just yet, and I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding. Just guide my steps, keep me calm, keep me. Don't let me fall to panic, because that's what the enemy wants me to do. He wants me to panic. He wants me to freak out. He wants me to overreact.
Hmm.
And I'm just gonna wait to see how you work this out. Because last time you blew my mind. I know with this is next level. You about to do something real big for me here, and you're going to get all the glory, and people are going to be blessed as a result of seeing me go through what I go through, seeing me overcome it, all because of you, giving you the credit for it. Those are powerful moments that you want to experience more and more of in your spiritual walk with Him. So good stuff. Good stuff. So, Florence, you've shared obviously a multitude of different stories and challenges, and yes, sometimes life can be tough like that. But sometimes life is just just kind of hit you with some certain basic nuances that we go through. Somebody get on your nerves on the job, a car trouble, an unexpected bill that comes your way, things of that nature. What I am curious to know though is when you do go through challenging times, whatever they may be, what is it that you personally like to do that kind of works best for you as you kind of work through and process through that thing in a healthy and a productive way while still trying to figure out what is it going to take for me to overcome that? What does that look like for you in those times?
I love to just seek the Lord and ask Him for direction.
Mm-hmm.
And He would give me some ideas. He would show me pictures of things. I could dream about something and He would show me. But see, God has not given me and all of us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And He wants us because when these things challenges come up, it could just if you don't watch your thoughts, you could just some people just go ballistic.
Mm-hmm.
I just give it to the Lord and trust Him, and He would show me. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." You got to be quiet before Him
Mm.
and hear Him. I trust you, Lord. Show me the way. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to panic. I'm going to be calm.
Mm-hmm.
And and then he'll show me some things, or He'll give me some ideas. Or sometimes it's not as bad as I think.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's like He's got it. Trust in Him. It's certain situations, and He's so loving and so kind. And then the thing too was when He says, "Don't do anything. Wait." Like there's some things I would like to do. No, wait. But this needs to get wait.
Mm-hmm.
And then when He tells me, "Go ahead and do it now," I do, and it works out.
Mm-hmm.
So waiting on Him and not going ahead of Him is a big thing. Trusting in Him and not dwelling on anything negative. That's the big thing. You could dwell on all kinds of negative things, and you could say, "Well, this could go wrong." Just leave it to the Lord and think on. That's why He says, "Think on good things," right? He says, "Whatsoever is pure and holy or lovely." I mean, and you know what I'm talking about, that scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Think on these things because you could think on some really bad things. And He wants you to walk by faith and not by sight, because we see a lot of stuff that could just mess us up. See, walk by faith. What am I telling Lord? What am I telling you about this situation? But look what am I telling you about this situation? Okay, Lord, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna walk by faith, not by what I see. And so those are the things that I've learned now. I've learned this through the years. I mean, it just didn't come overnight. I had to go through some things and make mistakes and like, oh goodness, I didn't do this. Or even sometimes when my husband was alive, he would tell me, "Florence, don't say that to him.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say that." And I would say something, and then it would like he says, "Didn't I tell you not to say that?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Gotta be obedient. Like, okay, I'm not gonna say this. I do it with my kids now. I've learned my children. If I see something and he says, "Don't tell them anything. Just love them. I'm gonna take care of it."
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yes.
Are you thinking about
Yes.
them all? No. Okay, Lord, I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
think about that. I'm giving it to you.
Yes.
Don't take it back. Give it to Him.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to Him. especially with your kids. Oh my goodness, that's hard.
Yeah,
You're like,
it
mom,
is.
you know,
It
you want
is
to tell
hard.
them things, and it was like, don't tell them that. Don't say anything. Just and he's telling me, you're the example. They're watching everything. See, when God does,
Hmm.
I'm always sharing his testimony. Oh, look what God did. Oh, he just did this. He just did that. Oh my goodness, he opened up this door. Oh, they're hearing that.
Right.
You know, my grandkids, they call me, Grandma, I have a question about this spiritual question. You know,
Hmm.
and at one time when they're all teenagers now. Well, no, I have. I mean, I have. If I have 10 grandchildren, I have a 6 month old. You know what I mean? I got them all.
Hmm.
But my teenagers now, when they were younger, they called me one. They called me one night. They said, "Mommy's asleep. We don't want to bother. Can you pray for us? It's a bad storm out here." And I said, "You have the TV on. Turn that thing off."
Hmm.
And they were like, they just felt so much peace. But we don't want to bother mommy. She's been working so hard. You know, can you just pray for us? And
That's
it's
great.
so cute. Yeah.
That's great. That is great. I love your approach to dealing with those difficult times because, like you said, I like the fact that you say obvious. For the obvious part of it is, seek Him. The part that a lot of people leave out, which is what you covered. Yes, while it's important for me to seek Him, it's also important for me to take a moment to be quiet so that I can hear what He has to say back to me. Because if I'm doing all this talking and praying is great, and I'm saying all this and all that and the other, and then I never take a moment to pause to hear what He has to say, then I'm gonna miss the answer that I'm looking for, or I'll run the risk of jumping ahead, as you said, jumping ahead of what He wants me to do, saying something that wasn't either that I wasn't supposed to say, doing something that I either wasn't supposed to do, or perhaps it wasn't a problem with me saying or doing it. It just wasn't the time to do it just yet. But
Hmm.
had I paused and heard what He had to say, I would have known that. But we're real good about going to God and telling Him what we want and what we need and all of that, and then we'll follow right up to tell Him how He's supposed to do it. And He's looking at us like, okay, well, didn't you come to me for the answer, or did you come to me to tell me what my answer is supposed to be, so you could say it in a way that pleases you? Because He never gives it back to us the way that we thought it was supposed to do,
That's
or
right.
the way it was supposed to be. It's
Hmm.
usually something the complete opposite end of what
You're
we were
right.
even thinking. And when He first says it, well, especially early on when you're not used to relying upon Him to give you those responses, you'll be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, why would I not say something? Why would I pause? Because you would do so because you trust me, and you know that I would never lead you astray. You know that I wouldn't tell you anything that is bad information. That's why you do what I say. If I tell you to, and I've jokingly said this, but it could, if I told you to hop on one leg and do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, if that's what I said do,
Hmm.
and then that's going to get you through the situation, then you just got to trust that that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Don't question the why. Just follow my lead.
Hmm.
And that's something, when I hear you speak about how you process dealing with challenging times, that's what you've learned to do over the years, is to follow His lead. And not allowing your own thinking, your own judgment to let you kind of run wild and do whatever and get ahead of yourself, instead of consulting with Him first and letting Him pace the process, letting Him give you the insight and the steps to take to get through whatever that particular challenge of the day is, whether again it's just the day-to-day nuances or it's the big stuff. Either way, He has the answer. Let Him give that to you. You came to Him because you thought He knew what He was doing. Then
Hmm.
let Him tell you, and follow the don't alter it, don't adjust it, don't modify it. Do it exactly the way He tells you to do. Because anytime you do otherwise, and I've been guilty of that, He gave me the answer, and I thought I could. Yeah, he left out this one little detail. I'm gonna tweak it for him.
Hmm.
Now you end up either messing up the whole thing or causing yourself to be in a situation way longer than you needed to be, all because you messed with a perfect design. It was perfect as it was. Nobody asked me to step in to modify and tweak it. So we got to stay in our lane when it comes to Him, and do as he's guiding us to do, and trusting that, no matter what you think it sounds like or what you think other people will think it sounds like. Not getting caught up in the opinions of others, because this is his
Mhm.
opinion. What he thinks of it is what matters to me most, not what everybody else's
So,
approval or lack thereof is involved in that. So it's good stuff. Good stuff.
mm,
So Florence, when you think back on all the experiences of life that you've had, good, bad, or otherwise, if you had the chance to sit across the table from younger Florence, Florence who at one point in life was involved in a abusive situation, just trying to find a way out, trying to look for her doorway to peace, trying to get away from what seemed to be chaos and confusion, just really trying to find out who you are as a person, and what life is supposed to be all about. What would you share with younger Florence that you wish she would have known, or even to our listeners? Some of the people who tuned in may have gone through some of the stuff you talked about: abusive relationships, not knowing what their purpose in life is, not really knowing how to just deal with challenges and storms in life in general. What would you say to younger Florence? What would you say to those listeners who are in that situation right now?
well, what always comes to my mind is that I really wish I had somebody who could mentor me,
Hmm.
because that would have been a big difference. And you know, I was just out there, and didn't know this, or I mean, everybody's partying and all this other stuff, and getting into a wrong relationship that, I mean, I have two beautiful children because of that. And that's what I told my daughter. I said, even though I went through all this, look at you.
Hmm.
Look what God did. And so um, I just, having someone to really mentor me, that's what I would have loved in my life. So I had to really depend on God to direct my path. Really
Hmm.
had to. I mean, He really did. Even when I didn't know what I was doing, He did. He protected me. I shouldn't be alive right now. That's how bad the situation was.
Hmm.
And when the Lord showed me that tunnel, He was like, "You need to get out now." It took me a year. He wanted me to get out, but I worked. I had to take the courage to get out. When you were so stuck in this situation, you don't even know how to get out.
Hmm.
How to get all different ideas of how to get out of this situation without somebody, trying to find me and everything, or take my life. And because when you get to that point, you don't care about your life, right? So you could take somebody's life and take your own.
Right.
But having someone mentoring me, it was like it would have been nice. Or living in a godly home.
Hmm.
I mean, I know sometimes, I mean, even as a godly home, it doesn't mean that everything is rosy. But having the biblical values, having the word, I, is, and I teach a lot for my children, a lot of things, my grandchildren. Every time around them, we're gonna be talking. Or I've had my I would get them and they were like, all of a sudden they're asking me all these hundreds of questions. Oh, does God this? Oh, does God do this? Or just because it's like nobody could be around them, you know, saying things. They have these questions. So so important, so important to really, if you have children, grandchildren, it's so important. Don't just waste that time and not do anything. Or just listen to the Lord and see what He wants to
Hmm.
for you to do. Not to force anything, but I'm saying, just because sometimes my kids would be here and I was like, I didn't, I didn't say anything, or minister the word, or said anything about you, Lord.
Hmm.
But and God understands.
Right. Right.
But it's the value of that. That is so valuable, and so it's life changing to be there for your kids.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, this is the way my life. God knew what was going to happen in my life, of course. But I really believe, this is my opinion, that as God has, you have a book of destiny in heaven, because in Psalm 39:16 it says that He's written everything about you know, and so He has a plan, but then the enemy has a plan. I had a dream, or it could have been a vision, but I saw a demonic area where there were books of things, plans for your life. Where God has His book, the enemy has his counterfeit book and wants to destroy your life. So I see it as you have a choice. You follow which one you're going to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, following Christ is nothing like it. You know, people in my family in New York are like, you live such a, looks like you live a boring life. But you know what? My life is very active,
Hmm.
very active. And I wouldn't give it, I think about, man, all that time I didn't have the Lord. How did I exist? It's like, oh my goodness.
That's right. That's right. I think your words of wisdom are appropriate considering our conversation this evening. A lot of times when people go through what they go through, we can attribute that to the fact that, who did I have in my circle? Whether it was a mentor, somebody who, looked out for me, whether it's just the people around me, people I call friends. It's important that you are aligned with people who have who are like-minded, particularly like-minded in terms of, relationally speaking with Christ, that they want to live lives that are pleasing to Him, that they want to be connected to positivity and not negativity,
Mhm.
that they want to do something meaningful with their lives. And so, to our listeners, if you are somebody that's, kind of wondering, what is some of those first steps in being able to not so much to avoid challenge, because, storms are going to come, not a matter of if, but when. But what does my circle look like? Who can I call upon? Like you, I love the fact that your kids, your grandkids feel like they can call upon you to say, pray for me,
Mhm.
or answer questions for me about God. You need people around you who are godly, who are God minded, who want to please God, who understand that when you go through stuff, that there's a godly way of handling it and there's a worldly way of handling, and
Mhm.
that you want to know that the people around you are going to always lean to the godly way of handling those particular challenges, those particular storms in life. And that's exactly what you spoke of. And it doesn't have to be a large circle of people. You don't have to have 20 mentors. Uh, you just need a select few that you can count on no matter what's going on in your life. People who will not be judgmental of you, but will hold you accountable. Will keep it real with you. Will tell it like it is. They won't sugarcoat something just because it's something that you want, that they think you want to hear. But they'll tell you what you need to hear, but they'll tell you in love.
Mhm.
They'll tell you in true, genuine support of wanting you to be the best version of who you are. That's the kind of people that you need
Mhm.
around you, especially when you're going through. Because if they can be there for you when you're going through, those same people will be there for you when it's time to celebrate, when it's time to party.
Mhm.
Because, things are going wonderful in your life. You're being blessed in whatever that is, job, finances, family, or whatever. Those same people will be there for the good times as they are in the dark times.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of people out here who have, quote unquote, you know, a, a, a plethora of friends, but let them go through something. Let them hit hard times. And then all of a sudden, all the followers that they have on social media, all of the people who cheer their name in the public scene, all of a sudden, when you go through, that's when you kind of know who's for real,
Yeah.
who's been there for real for you in the long run. When those people who are checking in on you, when you're at your lowest,
Mhm.
when you don't have anything to offer them,
Mhm.
that's kind of your signal of knowing, okay, this is the right person for me. This is
Mhm.
who I need to surround myself with, because I know if they can be with me in my darkest of times and my lowest of times, then I know that they're going to be with me no matter what. I can trust in them. I can confide in them. And they'll give me the encouragement and the uplifting that I need to have to get through whatever I'm dealing with right now, because they're getting it from the source, the right source. And so everything that you just spoke to, it embodies that, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it's such a powerful message that we all need to embrace.
Mhm. Amen.
So Florence, this has been a phenomenal time hanging out with you. The stories that you've being so transparent and vulnerable as you have, this is beautiful. This is powerful. This is impactful. This is what I like to do on this podcast. You've been a blessing to me. You've been a blessing to my listeners, and I'm thankful that we had the opportunity to get connected, finally meet each other, and you share in the way that you've shared this evening. So I do not take that lightly, and truly do appreciate it. But as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I let you go, I do want to take the opportunity to celebrate you, to love on you, to lift you up. So if you got anything that's going on now or coming up down the road, please tell us all about it, how people can support it, be a part of it, connect with it. We want to be able to check you out well beyond this podcast episode. So tell the listeners what Florence Watson got going on that they need to know about.
Well, I just published a book, and it's The Heart of Forgiveness. And it is the third edition of it. The first two titles of it was a retrospective view on Alzheimer's disease.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what happened. I happened to be in Florida, and there was this prophet, a true prophet, who was there, and we were talking about the book. It was just a small group of us. And he said, if you add forgiveness to your book, God is going to move
Mm.
in that. And it says in Second Chronicles 20:20, believe in the Lord your God, and you will be established. Believe in his prophets, and you will prosper. So I was like, I believe this, what he's saying is right on, because the book just came out, and many people, one lady in Amazon, she said, I don't have anybody who has any type of Alzheimer's disease, but that chapter on forgiveness really
Hmm.
taught me some stuff. So it's right there in Amazon. So it's The Heart of Forgiveness, caring for those with memory loss. And it's been in my heart. When I was working at this nursing home, um, the director nursing, they were going to build a new unit, brand new. And the director, she said, who wants to be the nurse of the special care unit? And no one wanted it. And the Lord said, you're going to be the nurse. I says, okay. So I knew everything about everyone that was admitted. And it was very challenging. And what happened was I was getting Psalm 88. I would wake up with it. I would see it. And I thought, because Psalm 88 is when you read that, somebody is going through some really serious, tormenting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking that it was demonic. So I would just ignored it. Like, okay, I cancel this assignment. I'm not accepting this. And I went to, so being that I was going to be the nurse in a special care unit, they would send me to conferences and stuff for people with memory loss or dementia or Alzheimer's. And what happened was I picked up a book from this man named Robert Davis, and it was My Alzheimer's Journey. And he was able, with his wife Betty, he was able to tell everyone what he was going through. And when I read that book, I was like, this is Psalm 88. And so God had impressed upon me to write about the psalm. And for each verse, so the first part of the book is Psalm 88.
Mm-hmm.
Each verse, I have an experience that I write with someone who has memory loss in relation to that verse. And
Okay.
then, but the first part, I added forgiveness. to I mean that is so major. You don't have that. You open yourself up to the enemy to mess with you anytime he wants. So the second part is for the caregivers, and I wanted to write a paragraph on any circumstance that anybody could have while they're caring for somebody.
Hmm.
And the other two books that I had, people was I have letters. They would say that one paragraph or chapter, it really ministered to me. That one thing that you said, I'm going through that right now. So in one part, um, and it's towards the end of the book, it was a Christmas party. So we had to get everybody, in the unit, we had to get everybody ready for their family to come and have a Christmas party, right? And I was helping this lady get dressed, and she was a beautiful piano player, but she didn't have. She was, she had some memory loss. She kept saying, "I, I I'll be glad when you are dead."
Mm.
And she just kept on saying that, like, "I'll be so glad when you die." And it was like I understood that when there's a lot of activity like that, people who have memory loss, they don't know what's happening, so they could just anything could happen. They could respond anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand what's going on, and it's darkness. You have complete darkness. Psalm 88, the last verse says in NIV, "Darkness is my best friend."
Hmm.
That's what it says, and that's what they see, darkness. Unless God light come in. So this woman was saying this to me, and I was trying to say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," and I'm helping her get dressed. And then it was starting to bother me. I was like, "Oh, I don't feel good." And then after the whole event, and I left because I stood over to help out. I was saying, "Lord, why did I bother start to bother me?" And he said, "Because you have something there that you
Mm-hmm.
can give." And God, I realized what was happening, and I forgave, and God healed me. And so those are things that God could use someone with memory loss.
Mm-hmm.
If someone with memory loss has was a Christian, gave their life to Jesus, the Holy Spirit does not have memory loss, even though they do. So the Holy Spirit could do anything with that person, and that's some examples I have where God moved and these people, and it was like this was God, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then I have a friend of mine who she's getting has memory loss, but she's a powerful prayer warrior. She's got those atomic bomb prayers. I'm telling you, you pray with her. And you know what? That's my friend. That's my buddy. We're going to pray because the Holy Spirit moves in her. And you can't, people do not discount those people who used to pray and they were intercessors. Just because that could be happening to them, do not discount them because God could still move.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And unless you've been in a caregiver situation, unless you've been bear witness to someone who's going through that, uh, it is a journey. It is a time, but they still deserve the love, the compassion, the support. And yes, some of it gets to a point to where they may say mean things.
Mhm.
Um, but you got to have a godly heart to, even in the midst of all of that, to still show them that compassion, still show them that empathy. Because if you were going through something like that, you'd want the same. Even if you weren't necessarily operating in your best version of yourself, as a result of the memory loss, like you said, that darkness that can come upon you, just not being able to function like you used to. You can only imagine how frustrating that must be and how it could take a toll on oneself. But
Yes.
the bottom line is, the beauty of it all is, even in the midst of all of that, God could take even that type of storm, that type of situation, and he can produce a prayer warrior out of it. He can produce a woman who still can play the piano beautifully, even though she might not remember what day of the week it is. He can take, you know, he can take a man who's going through a situation like that, but he can and use that man to impart wisdom into younger people. I thought it was, you know, when I thought think about to my grandmother, in her later years, kind of getting those early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's and all of that. She couldn't tell you about what was going on currently, but she could remember stories from 20, 30, 40 years ago and just be as sharp and as detailed and specific about it as possible. So you got to love that. And again, that's nothing but God. Because if you're supposed to lose your memory, if you're supposed to not remember, you know what's going on, you would think from a worldly perspective, that means everything is lost.
Right.
But God doesn't make that happen, and I believe he purposely uses even individuals that are in those situations to be a blessing. That yeah, and use it to and use those individuals to teach us how to treat each other, teach us how to forgive, how to love one another. So, as you stated so eloquently, do not take that for granted. Do not take that lightly,
Mm-hmm.
and love people. Meet them where they are and love them for who they are, because it's not about you. It's about who they belong to. And just like again, just the same compassion and empathy and love that they're deserving of, you would want the same for you too,
Amen.
which is why we treat each other, we treat others like we want to be treated. So good stuff, good stuff. Well, my listeners, she's got a powerful book out there. Please support it. Please get a copy of that. It can be a blessing to you, or you know somebody
Mm-hmm.
that's going through that situation right now, and this book can minister to them. Get it for them. It doesn't matter, but be a support of that. Share that word, share that message, share that ministry, because there's a lot of people who need what she's doing. Florence is doing a mighty and powerful work through her books, through her just her walk in life, just being a living example of what God looks like, what God's favor, I should say, looks like on a person, no matter what they've been through, no matter what circumstances they come from, no matter what their backgrounds or anything of that matters. It's who they're connected with, who they're in relationship with. And so this woman of God has made that very clear, very plain, giving us some nuggets that we can apply right now in our respective lives. So take full advantage of that. And if you can't do anything else right now, just keep her lifted in prayer, because doing God's work is not an easy task. There's some days where you feel tired, you feel exhausted, you feel like, you know what, let's pass this baton on to somebody else. But he's not done with Florence yet. And so she needs all the encouragement, all the support, all the prayers that you can offer her so she can continue to do the work God has for her to do. So always do keep that in mind and continue to support her accordingly. And for myself personally, I wish nothing but God's favor and blessings and abundance of love and support and encouragement on you and everything that you touch and everything that you do in all aspects of your life. And I'm excited for what he's doing in you, and I look forward to hearing more great and wonderful things that he's doing, with you and through you, to be a blessing to other people. So keep up the good work. Keep following God's path. Keep leaning on Him, and just let Him do amazing things through you, Florence, and keep letting Him work through you. And I know you're not going to disappoint. So
Amen.
again, I'm thankful that we've had this time together. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our broadcast, if you've enjoyed the stories that have been shared this evening, you felt empowered and encouraged, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. Being vulnerable and transparent, just keeping it raw, keeping it real,
Mm-hmm.
not trying to put on a facade like we got it all perfect and figured out, but just understanding that, hey, we all go through some storms of some types of various varieties and fashions and forms. But at the end of the day, nothing is too big for God. If you just get connected with Him, if you just lean on Him and trust Him, He can get you through all of that. And if you don't currently have a relationship with Him, today would be a mighty fine day to make that happen.
Amen.
Because again, He loves you unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you. He wants that relationship. So get a hold of that. Grab hold tight to it and never let it go. There's plenty of it to go around for all of us. So if you don't have a part of that, today is a great day to do it. And I promise you it'll be the greatest, the best decision that you'll ever make. Not
Amen.
telling you something that we heard, we're telling you something that we know from firsthand
Right.
experience. So you too can be a part of that. You too should be a part of that. Don't wait another minute. Don't delay any further. Give it all to him, give all of you to him, and just watch him do miraculous blessings, not only for you personally, but to funnel through you to be a blessing to other people. And so, with that said, remember here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, again, keep fighting that good fight, keep leaning and trusting and following in obedience to what God has for you, and He will just blow your mind with the miraculous works that He can do to you and through you. So, with that said, you take care, have a great rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing you next time.